Like cooking, everything has a recipe.
A set of instructions to follow in order to gain a certain result.
Music is no different.
Be it ingredients for a dish, a set list for an amazing show,
Or a release strategy for a successful launch.
these are all recipes.
Hi, we're your hosts, Sean.
And I'm Brandon.
Come and join us in our kitchen as we go through the Music Maker's Cookbook.
Let's get cooking. Hey, Sean, can I start today's episode?
No,
Oh,
you can't.
okay.
My job.
Okay.
Welcome to the Music Maker's Cookbook, the podcast where we help independent artists cook up recipes for success in the music industry. And today, as Brandon and I just eloquently showcased, is about rejection.
I just got rejected.
Yes, you did.
And now I feel like shit.
Before we really dive into that, I real quick want to say that recently the Music Maker's Cookbook has been trying new things and expanding a little bit. We have an Instagram, a Facebook page, a TikTok, and a YouTube channel. And we're going to currently we're just kind of taking these podcasts and cutting them into relevant shorts about certain materials or talking about brief parts that we've talked about in this podcast and posting them on different platforms. But moving forward, we're going to take more of an active approach towards it and start posting some more content platform specific things.
Yeah.
Actually, we're going to have released some by the time this episode comes out. Some more like specific tutorials on how to do specific things, or quick summaries that kind of go over main points of these podcast episodes, or as I said, like educational tutorials, maybe some short interviews or answering Q&As or asking you guys questions for more involvement. So if you really want to be more involved or hear more specific details or just kind of stop in and say hi, you can check us out Music Maker's Cookbook on any of these platforms.
We are modern.
And if you want to reject us and say no and don't do it, that's okay.
Totally valid too. We'll deal with it.
Totally valid.
Yep, we'll deal with it.
But yeah, time to kind of just jump in and talk about, rejection in the music industry.
Yeah.
There are plenty of ways.
There's a lot of it.
There's a lot of it, and there's plenty of ways you can be rejected.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I mean, you're probably going to be rejected almost from day one, it feels like, in this industry. People call it cutthroat. And yeah, sure. I guess it could be, depending on how you look at it, right? But we have some anecdotes to kind of go over, maybe some examples that we're going to talk about today with specific people, more popular people. I'm sure you've probably heard of some of these stories, of course, but it's just important to highlight, I guess, these situations and how these situations don't define you when you get rejected, right? It's just a momentary thing, but these momentary things, they can have an everlasting impact on your career and your mental health too.
Exactly.
So we have to learn how to kind of resolve those, within yourself and internalize them so you can use them to your advantage.
Like, you can be dropped from a label, you can be denied on a playlist, you can be denied from a venue or a festival, you can be denied touring with another band that you really want to tour with, or you apply for that.
People could deny you just from not wanting to listen to your song, right?
Exactly.
I don't want to listen to this.
A sad one is sometimes your family rejects you.
Yeah.
If you really put a lot of time and effort into it, they're like, just get a normal job, become a doctor.
That's a big one.
That can be hard.
That's a big one. And that can play into imposter syndrome. So, and like Sean was saying, there are ways to kind of internalize it and turn these into more of a positive. That one bad comment is always going to stick out to you more so than the a million good comments that you might get. So we need ways and tools to deal with this somehow, right? And we need to be able to work through this and just keep pushing, because we're going to talk about some anecdotes today that kind of highlight these situations. And I mean, of course, these are going to be very famous anecdotes, so you've probably already heard them, but these are just good examples though of what happens when you keep going through the rejection, right? Yeah. And you're able to internalize this and keep pushing forward, even though somebody might say no at some point.
I mean, and unfortunately, just to be real here, historically, the music industry has been full of gatekeepers.
Yeah.
If you want to make it on the radio, you got to be signed with a label. So you have somebody who needs to actually listen to your demo or your album and have faith in you that, yeah, this could be big, so we'll sign you on. Otherwise, you're not getting radio play unless you find an independent radio station. Yep. Or as we're all trying to promote our stuff and get our music out there, go onto playlists, submit it to blog writers.
Publications and stuff like that.
Publications and whatnot. You got to submit it. And a lot of times they'll say no. If you're trying to get on the ticket for a festival and submit yourself to the booker, hey, I want to play this venue. Hey, I want to be on this gig. Hey, I would like to perform here. You're not always going to be accepted.
Yeah.
Great if you were, but
it's just a sad reality, unfortunately. Yeah. There's just so much out there, right?
Yeah.
It's hard for people to accept everybody.
Yeah. And sometimes it's not a bad thing. It's like, hey, I want to perform in this venue. Like, no, we reject you.
Yep.
Well, you're a punk pop. No, you're a punk pop band and they play jazz.
Yeah.
So you don't want to get
it's
accepted.
It's not going to be a good fit. No. And honestly, it's not going to be a good fit for you either. Like, you're not going to probably gain a whole lot out of that show anyway. So they're almost doing you a favor. Look at that. We just internalized that, right? A fake rejection we just came up with. We already internalized it.
Exactly. So at some point, we're going to be talking a bit about how using rejection and the failure of it can actually really help you identify your audience of who you should be applying to and be specific in the niche of it. And the power of that is that you're more likely to get accepted in a location that has true benefit for you.
Yeah.
So we're going to kind of go through that process and kind of ways to help deal with it. But as I said, unfortunately, it's full in the industry, and it's happening modernly in new ways than it has before.
Yeah.
I brought up before a lot, like in the past, it was, hey, you got to get signed to a record. For a quick example, the Supremes, before they were signed to Motown, they had applied, and Gordy said no.
That's crazy.
So they made a single with another record company that got released, and it got big. So eventually, it was like, you know what? Yeah, I'll take you in. Because initially said no because they were too young.
Yeah.
Famously, like Madonna, when she first submitted her demo to a record company, they said no.
Yep.
And later on, got accepted. I think similar story with Lady Gaga.
Yep.
You know, Kanye.
I think Ed Sheeran had a similar one.
Yep.
Kanye had a similar one where he was mainly a producer first, right? And then he wanted to become a more established hip hop artist, and he kept taking it to labels and stuff. And they were like, no, we see you as more of a producer, until Rockefeller Records eventually signed him under Def Jam. So just another common story, right? That shares a lot of parallels to these other ones. Another one is probably Eminem, right? I mean, we can go into that too. And then you have other interesting things where we'll flip the script. You have Chance the Rapper, who has rejected labels from doing contracts with them, right? So he's doing the rejecting. How cool is that, right? Because he wants to remain independent. So
taking power back.
Yeah. So flip the script a little bit on that example, but just another example of someone else getting rejected. It wasn't Chance that got rejected, it was the other guy. So there you go.
I'm also going to briefly bring up another quick story about a band called The Rare Occasions. I'm kind of gleaning this off mainly an interview that they did with Ari Herstand, his podcast, The New Music Business. Highly recommend listening to that. He's got a lot of really good information about making the new industry, some new changes that are happening with different platforms, labels, distribution companies. He does interviews with a lot of these people that we can't quite reach yet. So if you want to really get a behind the scenes, listen to some of this and learn more about the backings of what's going on, I highly recommend checking out.
He's a wealth of information.
He's got a great blog, bunch of stuff. So check out him. But he had an interview with a band called The Rare Occasions, and they have a really unique story. Is they had a song that they recorded in 2016 that blew up on TikTok years later.
Yep.
Now, there's plenty of reasons why it did. Listen to the interview. It's fantastic. It's titled What Happens After a Band Gets Signed Then Dropped. So, example, they had this song blow up years later on TikTok. They got approached by a bunch of different record labels, and they signed with one of them. And then the song didn't hit the metrics record label wanted them to. So instead of being on for the next album or multiple albums or multiple singles to help support the band moving forward, they got dropped. So they had the success. They were accepted. Then they were just immediately rejected because it didn't quite give them the numbers that the record label wanted.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that can happen, just to be aware of. But we'll talk about it later. They're still playing. They're still making music. They're still recording. So just kind of learn more about kind of other things that can happen. I highly recommend checking out that episode
Absolutely.
of his podcast.
Absolutely.
But yeah, and one thing that they do talk about is the many ways that rejection can affect you emotionally and mentally, and how it can affect your art. And that's something we're going to cover really as well, because one thing that rejection can do is it can really help, unfortunately, solidify the sense of imposter syndrome. Because imposter syndrome is, I don't deserve this. I'm not good enough. Nobody wants to listen to my music.
Yeah.
I don't deserve like the success or to make a living with my music. And the more people that say, we don't want you, it's like kind of saying, yeah, no, you don't deserve it.
Yeah.
It's like kind of feeding that little voice in the head. And that can be really unfortunate and really dangerous.
Yeah.
So
it's almost like a self-affirmation, if you let it become that, and it can start a really nasty negative feedback loop that will put you in like a perpetual state of just honestly just sorrow at some point. And like you said, Sean, it's like it affects how you write music, how you think about music. And I mean, it really just spills over into the craft and sometimes the personal life too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, because it's like music's something a lot of people do to become fulfilled, right? So what a lot of us humans look for is becoming fulfilled, unless you're looking for money. No, I'm just kidding.
Why not both?
Why not both?
Like a
right?
taco shell commercial.
Exactly. Right. Why not both?
Why not both?
If that's what we're here to do, like both of these things, right? And yeah, it can just spill over into your personal life and just cause just like depression, right? Like, I mean, if you want to go more clinical, like cause you to be depressed in your own life because now you're not making music that fulfills you. You're making music that reacts to something that somebody said or a rejection, right? And it's really hard to focus on something other than that after you get that. But like we said, you have to be able to internalize that and move forward with your art.
One positive thing about it is, for better or for worse, the more you do it, one, the more you're going to get rejected, but also the more victories you're going to have.
Mm-hmm.
Something that we both have experienced throughout this industry is, I'm very confident saying this for you too, Brandon, but there's been so many times where I get a song from an artist, I work on the mix, I get it sounding really good, in my opinion, send it back to the artist. This is nothing what we want.
Yeah.
This doesn't sound good. I don't like what you did here. I want this changed. I've even straight on I've gotten cussed out before.
Really?
And insulted, like, do you even know what the fuck you're doing?
That's crazy.
That's happened to me a couple times. And one, that's just sucks to be like, I put so much time into this and I thought it sounded really good and now you're shitting on me. But then also the whole thing of like, well, crap, do I know what I'm doing? Especially when it is right when you start off.
Yeah.
And I got that one comment the first year I started doing remote mixing and mastering online.
It's tough.
So I'm like, crap.
Yeah.
I stepped away from it. I didn't respond for like a day. Cause I'm like, I don't really want to say something stupid because I was feeling insecure and angry at the moment. But then I commented the next day, like how I normally comment. Okay, well, if you don't like it, tell me the things you don't like. Give me some timestamps, what do you want changed? If, I didn't hit use your references wrong, if you want to give me some new references or tell me what you don't like. So he responded, told me what he didn't like, things that were wrong, whatever. Got a revision back, and then he loved the revision and he approved it. So it was taking that rejection to kind of learn from it, but it was really hard, especially being right off. And I know a lot of independent artists that are kind of listening to this are just kind of starting. So like we relate. Yeah. it can feel really bad.
Yeah. And like things like that kind of example, and I know I can speak for Sean on this one too, is we have ways that we've implemented to help maybe try to circumvent that before it gets to that point, right? And it's not because we don't want to face the rejection, it's just because we want to be more efficient, right? So, but we've taken those rejected times and have cultivated something that will help maybe prevent that from happening later, right? So we've internalized that rejection and put it towards something positive along the way. And obviously that's going to take a lot of refinement, a lot of rejection to do, because then you'll start to notice trends and everything like that. But I think you spoke on something that's really important, is that the magnitude of rejection is really important, right? A YouTube comment saying that this song sucks, opposed to somebody rejecting you for a record deal. Both of those things feel different, right? The YouTube comment you're most likely to forget in maybe a week or two. Potentially, depending on how much you want to read into YouTube comments, which I recommend not doing because it is a cesspool at some points. But there are actually sometimes positive feedback things in there, so comb through wisely. Sometimes people hire people to go through that for them, so they protect them from the negative stuff, like the really negative stuff. I'm not talking like the constructive criticism. I'm talking about like, bro, this song fucking sucks. That's not constructive, right? No. So. But you start to notice these trends, right? And then I'm sorry. Let me go back real quick. The magnitude.
Rewind it back.
Exactly. The magnitude of things, right? Opposed to like going to a record label and getting rejected, right? Those two things, they feel a lot different, right? But one of them you're most likely to listen to more than the other two, right? And then you can refine your processes for the next round with whatever that event might be. So let's say you get rejected by this label, you get rejected by that label. Okay, they both said similar things. I'm going to try taking their advice and doing something different. Then you go to the third label and they're like, we'll keep an eye on you. Not a rejection, but still like a, hey, this is a possibility, right? So I just wanted to highlight those two things, the magnitude of which the rejection is, and then also doing things that kind of circumvent beforehand. Yeah. You're turning them into positives and efficient tools.
Well, kind of a quick example of something that you brought up, applying for record labels and being rejected. And that way, something that we've all experienced as artists is trying to get your music out there. A lot of times you have to pass through certain kinds of gatekeepers in order to get it to a new audience. Either you need to get past a venue owner, or you have to get past a playlist owner, or a blog writer, or label or whatnot. But a lot of us, at least in America, varies around the world, but a lot of people here are very familiar with Spotify. They are the king of music streaming in the US. Apple Music's good. There's other ones, but there's like top 5, and Spotify is the number 1. So
at least of the time of this recording.
At least the time of this recording. Yeah. And a lot of ways people listen to music and find new music is through curated playlists on Spotify, whether it be official Spotify playlists or they follow other people's playlists that are the kind of music they like to listen to. And to get your songs on these playlists, sometimes you have to go through services like Submit Hub or Playlist Push, or not recommending any of them, not sponsored by any of them, not talking about it. Probably do a deep dive into them more later on, potentially more on our YouTube channel, what's more specific. But when you go to these services to submit your song to these playlists, the way they work is that the people who own the playlists are supposed to listen to a certain amount of the song and write a certain amount of words in response to it. Sometimes you get good feedback, sometimes you get bad feedback. But it's very likely that you're going to get rejected from a good deal of them. In fact, we pulled directly from Submit Hub, their website, that they have a 25% acceptance rate for their playlist, which means 75% of the time you're not going to get accepted for these playlists. And part of that is actually a good thing. Now, we kind of did some research on the history of specifically Submit Hub, and it is that when they first started, back in like 2010, that era, they only had 5 genres that you could submit your song to. And now there's 225 that they have categorized as genres on that specific platform. So if you submit a song on the platform, you can get super specific, super niched with your genres that you send your song to. So if you know what genre you are, the niche genre, you can angle it directly into it. And then everyone who listens to those playlists likes that genre, and you're going to get better feedback because the people who are curating it listen to that kind of music all the time. So there's positive in that. And if you don't know what your specific genre is, you can use this as a tool to kind of shotgun method. Submit it to where you think you might be and see which ones accept your music. And then once you know that, you can then kind of go to those areas that are super niched and target that with the way you look, your language, and actually fit better in with, to contact the people who are your target audience more specifically than trying to be too broad with it. So you can use it as a tool to find out, okay, what very specific genre am I?
Definitely. So, and like we were saying, like you can expect that 3 out of every 4 submissions you do will be rejected by the platform, right? So then that also kind of ties into budgeting too, because then you can kind of figure out like, okay, I'll probably get rejected up to this many times, right? Be realistic about it. I want to clear something up too. I say niche and niche, and it all depends on how it's used, in my opinion. Niche is a noun, niche is an adjective. So something is very niche, but if you describe it as it being the niche, right? That's how I use it. Interesting, right?
Good for you.
I'm telling you, Webster's should hire me because that is how it should be done. No, I'm just kidding. But no, seriously, that's how I define it. I've always wanted to say it on a podcast. So why not our own?
Your dream.
I know. I'm
true.
Fulfilled.
You're fulfilled,
and you didn't reject me from not saying it.
No.
Thank you.
But if you want to in the comments, you can.
And I'll welcome it, Dan. Because I'm sticking by this. But
Well, that kind of brings up kind of one way that you can deal with rejection is just being that sure of your belief that you can push through rejection no matter what it is.
Yep.
You're sure and steadfast in the way you say niche or niche that you don't care what people say.
Yep. It's a hybrid approach.
Exactly. So if you're surefire in your music and just fully believe in it, that is a phenomenal way to push past rejection and deal with it.
Yeah.
Another way you can...
I want to say something real quick too.
Go for it.
And like, why not be like that about your music, right? Why not? So like music's subjective and we get told that it's always subjective, but yet we're told to go out and seek feedback by other people, but it's subjective, right? So like, why not be confident in your music? Just think about that. Why not?
You have to be.
You have to be, right? It's all about how it's presented. You can't control that. The person giving you feedback can only control that, right? But it's also about, like we're about to get to, how you internalize it, right? Not every single piece of feedback is going to be used for refinement later on, right? So it's like, just be confident with it. People aren't going to like it sometimes, but people might like it sometimes. So I just want to put that out there real quick because like that's always been something interesting to me. It's so subjective that we need to go seek others' opinions on it, because it's very community based, but at the same time, like it's our music. Who gives a fuck? So I'm really curious to know too, in the comments below, how you feel about that too, because like that has always been such a paradox to me, because it's like, it just goes against everything, you know? Oh, you shouldn't worry about what other people think, but you should go get feedback on that song. Well, right? Interesting, right?
Well, so I think the reason that they both work is that
they do both work.
They do both work.
Yeah, they both have their place.
Yeah, and I think they both can live together simultaneously. I just looked it up. As of 2021, there are 7.88 billion people on this earth.
It's a lot of people.
And in the USA, there are 331.9 million people as of 2021. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Odds are there's somebody that likes the same music you do.
Most likely.
And odds are you are referenced and take inspiration from music that you like. So there's already potential proof for that style, and you're just incorporating your own aspects to it and making it something that you enjoy. And I hope you enjoy your music.
Yeah.
Because if you enjoy your music, somebody else is going to enjoy your music. The thing is just kind of finding them.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's going to take a lot of no's before the one person's like, yeah, that is me. Because it's hard to find that.
Yeah, definitely.
And especially with all the music out there. We've said it before, but there's like 40 to 60,000 songs uploaded to Spotify every day. That's a lot of music.
It's a ton.
And the way the algorithms work, the way everything works, I'm not going to go into a rabbit hole, but there's a lot that needs to go into finding the right person.
Yeah.
And that's where really niching down and finding what is your super specific genre, your super specific category, so that you can find people who like your music, people like you, where you can group together and share it to. And that's a great way to really start that. And but as I said, you're going to get rejected before you find it.
It's true.
You got to find someone who believes in it.
Music discovery is extremely difficult. And like for the reasons you just outlined, I mean, 40 to 60,000 songs uploaded per day. You got to sift through that somehow. Like these companies have to comb through it, right? So you're going to get rejected. People only have so much time on their hands, right? So
I don't know.
It's just difficult.
I don't know if I should, but I'm going to go on a real brief tangent, kind of talking about with how much music and how much content is put out in the world nowadays.
Oh man, it's flooded.
Yes, exactly. The biggest issue isn't necessarily good or bad. It's dealing with the volume.
Yep.
Things get through the cracks. Things go viral. There's a strong message. Everything's put together. You play with the system's rules. You can game the system to a degree and accelerate your rate of success. That's a lot of what we talk about in this podcast.
Yep.
These are the rules of these platforms, this industry. If you want to play the game, go for it. it will be helpful. If you don't, that's also very valid. You can do your art however you want to. But if you want to play by the rules, you're going to be rejected by other people. And if you want to do your own thing, you're going to be rejected by the rules. So a lot of it, as I said, is they're trying to deal with the volume of it. And that's why, if you go back to our episode about release strategies, the waterfall method exists, is because Spotify specifically recommends having a song uploaded every 4 to 6 months, weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. So they have a constant feed of your music so that they always have something to push for that month cycle to your recommended music of artists that they follow or whatever, that they can start building their algorithm on your music and start training it to, this is the kind of people that listen to it. This is the kind of music that he creates. So after about a year and a half, 2 years, eventually they're like, we got it. This is what the music's about. These are the people that listen to it. Now we'll push it more towards other people. The same thing with YouTube, other social medias. It's linear at the start until it understands it, and then it could go exponential. Yeah,
because I mean, just think about it like this, right? Is that these platforms have people that are paying them money, that want to be entertained, so they need to cultivate an environment for them to be entertained. So they know they will learn the consumer habits, right? And then they will expect you to kind of like, they will take what you're giving them and then put you in that avenue, as long as you remain consistent with it, of course, and it's quality.
They don't want to push someone that they don't know is going to be there next month.
Exactly.
They want to see, oh, this guy is posting music every month, so that when they do start pushing you hard, they know that next month something else is probably going to come out, or next week something's probably going to come out, or whoever it is, they can kind of bank on it, so that people who then follow you will then come back to the platform to see you again, or stay on the platform as you keep putting stuff out. That's definitely a huge thing on YouTube. A little bit of behind the scenes. We're not there yet, but you can advertise on YouTube. You can make money on the platform. And there's a couple different statistics you need to make in order to do it. Some of them are based around numbers, some of them are based around consistency, and some of them are based around watch time. And that kind of tells you what YouTube is looking for as a platform. And that would be, they want people to watch a lot of your content and stay there for a while, so that they can potentially put more ads in front of the people's eyes. They want viewers to come back week after week, so that you have consistency amongst it. One of the big ones is you had to post a video once a month. Or a short once a week, I think, one or the other. So they really, before you can even make money on it, that you have to showcase, I can be consistent with this. Because they're now, before they take a risk and push you, they want to know that you have something set up that they can support. Same thing works with Spotify, any other social media platform. Yeah.
I mean, the same thing works with clocking in for a job, because they expect you to come to your job and do your deliverable for the day and then go home. That's exactly the way that the world has always operated. And that's how these kind of operate too.
Yeah.
So,
and going back to rejection, it might feel like you're being rejected from getting your art there. Oh man, my song is killer. It really helps people. It should be heard. It should be pushed out there. Why isn't it showing my stuff to new people? Why am I not growing on this platform? Well, because they don't know if you're going to do it week after week, especially if you're just starting off. There isn't that consistency there. There isn't that background. They don't have an algorithm formed around you. And that's where the rejection of not promoting it on their platform kind of comes from. And that's my tangent.
I want to say before we even move forward, because this is going to be really important, that I can already picture people saying, well, then I need to do this before I post. I need to do that before I post. Just start posting. Like the time you should have posted was yesterday, and the second best time is now, right? You need to get that going if this is what you're going to want to do. You can't wait for the perfect song, right? I mean, maybe build up a bank of songs to help you along the way, right? So that way you have content to post monthly, weekly, bi-weekly, but don't take terribly too long on it, because now you've already wasted 6 months looking back, right? You have to start posting sometime. So start doing it, right? Start figuring out how these things work, and then refine your product to make it work with these platforms. I just want to say that before people even go, oh, I need to do this, need to do that, and then they reject themselves from doing that, right?
Yeah.
I just want to say that, because like that, I feel like people can fall into a really big rabbit hole of being like, I need to be perfect right away. That's not how this works. It's never worked like that.
And if you want a real life example, look at our socials.
Dude, look at our socials. Go listen to the first podcast episode. I mean, we're on what, episode 23 for
This will be 23, yeah.
I feel like we've already started to improve on some certain things, and I feel like we can always continue to improve on certain things, right?
Well, here's the thing. We've shown Spotify that we will post a podcast episode every week.
Yep.
And now we just post it, like when we made our social medias about a month after we started recording the podcast, we only had a couple posts here and there. Well, about the past month, by the time this comes out, about a month and a half, we'll have been posting podcast clips consistently on nearly a daily basis.
Yep.
And now we're starting to learn, okay, let's start making content that's more specific towards these specific platforms where we can dive more in depth or offer more things here or try this out here. And then also tie them together to different platforms. Because honestly, if what works for one thing is going to be rejected by another platform. So that's another thing to keep in mind is, why isn't my stuff working on this platform? Why isn't me talking to the camera about our upcoming show working in this format? It could also be because it's not in the right social media platform. And that's why it's being rejected by their algorithms, because it doesn't showcase what you want to do. For example, a lot of times, like Facebook isn't going to want to push or showcase all of your followers a post that links to an external website. So if you post a YouTube, like a link to a YouTube video on Facebook to your 1,000 followers, that says, check out my video. And when you click on it, it takes them off of Facebook. Facebook has no incentive to showcase
None.
That. So
Facebook's probably the most prominent with that too, honestly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they're not gonna put it in the feed of all your fans.
Yeah.
But
and Instagram. I mean, think of Instagram. Why can't you put URL links in the posts? They don't want you to leave the site.
Exactly.
Yep.
But now if you can showcase it and change it to like, hey, here's a 60-second clip of our music video, and then reformat it and put it on Instagram or upload it, embed it into the Facebook player. Now they're going to show it to more of your followers because it's keeping them on the platform. So just small things like that can help with that, narrow down the rejection in that form of platforms not sharing it to your fans who already exist, but even like new fans who are out there.
Exactly.
All right.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well said.
So that's our platform specific rejection.
That was our
tangent.
little rant on that. Yeah. But I think it was important though to illustrate and for example purposes too. It's just good context.
Yeah. Okay.
back to what we were talking about.
Yeah. Do you want to go back to kind of like feedback and improvement and like how asking for feedback is kind of an interesting thing?
Yeah.
And how like there are ways to get good feedback to help you deal with rejection in certain regards?
Definitely. So feedback is important, right? It's part of the refinement process of your product, right? I talk about it all the time. Build, measure, learn, loop. I didn't come up with this. Eric Rise did in the Lean Startup. Terrible way to introduce that. If he ever listens to that, I am going to get roasted by him. But that was a really bad way to introduce it. But that's what he says. That is a part of the process, right? You put the product out. People get it. People tell you what's bad about it. You refine it, right? And it goes through that infinitely many times. Music kind of works the same way, right? You put it out. People tell you if they like it. And like either they tell you directly or they tell you indirectly, right? Either they don't listen to it or they listen to it once and never listen to it again. That's their way of saying, it's not for me. Or they'll just straight up text you and be like, dude, this song, fire. Dude, this song, not it, right? So you get two kind of ways of responses, right? But nonetheless, it's feedback, right? If you're looking for specific feedback, you can always tee it up to people, right? You can sort of cultivate a little strategy. You can say, hey, what do you think of the guitar tone in this song? What do you think of the chord progression in this song? What do you think of the instruments used together in this song? If you're looking for something very specific like that, right? If you're trying to refine some sort of process within your production, right? You can tee it up like that. Or do you have another example off the top of your head?
Yeah, just like prefacing the question of what you want feedback on.
Better way to
Instead of
say
saying, hey, do you like the song? Yeah, I like the song. No, I don't like the song. You can be like, hey, do you like how the intro starts? Do you like the energy of when the chorus hits? Do you like how like the way the pre-chorus comes in? Or there's so many things with music. You can say, hey, do you like the first song that we perform in our live shows? Do you like how we start off right away? Do you like how we talk, the stories we tell, or what we share between songs? Do you like our merch? Do you like our music video, or how we promote ourselves, or the style, or depending on who you're asking, and make sure it's good feedback from them, you can preface the things that you actually want to get the answers to. And to find places to ask these questions to, if you have a built-up community and a built-up fan base,
Yep.
they're the people you want to ask first, because that's who it's speaking to already, and you can get good feedback from them. The second place is you can go to places that also already have a similar fan base. There's plenty of Facebook groups, subreddits, other forums out there that you can go send your music to, or show your style or images or whatever of these groups that already exist within these specific genres that you can get good feedback from. As we mentioned earlier, there's things like Playlist Push and Submit Hub, where you can submit your music to get reviewed by these people who listen to lots of music. If you have specific things you want, you can ask, I want feedback on this, or more broad feedback, or no feedback at all. If you just the song's ready, I just want it out, I don't care about the feedback. You can pretty much preface it with that. And once you learn more specifically, or the more specific you can get on what your genre is and who your fan base is, then the more accurate you can get with your submissions, the more accurate you can get with your questions, and the more accurate you can get with, what you're looking for out of it.
Exactly.
For example, when we ask you guys, we could say, hey, what do you want us to talk about on the podcast? And it could be artist development related, or it could be, we like it when you guys talk about pie.
Yeah.
Do an episode about pie.
I mean,
or we could say,
I would love to talk about pie. Maybe our Thanksgiving special will be about pie.
That'd be fun.
That would be fun.
Share some Thanksgiving recipes.
That would be fun.
But no, maybe later on the road.
Maybe we'll eat pie while we do the episode.
Dude, I'll get a Sam's Club pumpkin pie.
Oh, I'm there.
They hit different.
They're so good. They're so good, dude.
Or we could ask, what are you struggling with in your artist journey that you would like us to cover? That's a little more specific, and it's more about independent artist development. Or we could say, hey, we have this topic idea. Tell us how it affects you, so we can use those stories and those challenges that you face inside of this episode, which we kind of did a while back, where we asked you guys, hey, if you have, we had the idea given to us about how to handle things that are out of the control when you're making music, be it in the studio, live shows, wherever it may be. And we said, what are some specific examples of times where things came up that were out of your control? Let us know how you dealt with them, how you wish you dealt with them, or even just, I don't know what I should have done in the moment. Let's talk about it. That's a very specific question.
Another one too. I mean, this one is just for today, but Sean's obviously not using an SM7B today. We can be like, what do you think of Sean's mic? Does this sound better than another episode that you heard with his other mic? Let us know. Maybe we'll keep this setup going, right? So very specific things, if that's what you need to kind of tee it up as, if you're looking for something like that. Another way that you can kind of reach out to people is community-based ways, right? So your peers, people you play shows with, your musical friends, right? People that understand the musical process. You can even go for baseline friends, family, right? Yeah, baseline, right? You can just say, hey, do you guys like this? But just know that your mom's taste and your taste will probably differ, right? So you have to take the credibility of your sources into account when you're looking for specific feedback. Another cool way to do it is just by asking your fans, hey, do you like this song, right? Or seeing how they interact with the song at a show, because that can be really telling too. If they're not dancing, they're just standing there like kind of picking their nose, and it's like, okay, well, maybe this one's a dud, maybe I don't play this one. But then that could also have elements to it too, where it's like, maybe it's not the right show to be playing that at, right? And then you can kind of I keep saying internalize the feedback, but you can kind of read into it and be like, maybe not this song for this show at this time, right? Maybe a different time I'll play this song, right? So just a couple of different ways, I think, of kind of tapping into your supporting network around you. Have anything that I kind of add to that?
Well, you can also just completely disregard everything we just said.
Right.
Because as Brandon said at the start of it, if you just have such a strong belief in your music and what you're doing, then honestly, to a degree, it doesn't matter as much. You still want necessarily feedback on where is this being accepted, so that you can get it to the people who want to hear your music, but you don't necessarily need feedback of like, oh, this sounds bad, or this sounds good, or they're not dancing in the crowd, or they're going crazy. If you believe it and it's what you want to do, to that regard, just do it. So
it's a strange paradox that this is, right? And the next topic we'll be talking about too is also a strange paradox as well. I actually have it written down to highlight that, but it's just a weird. I don't know. maybe I'm just looking too far into it, but like it is just a weird thing to kind of discuss a little bit. I don't know any other way to describe it. You want your music, you want to be confident in your music. Music's subjective. You should be proud of it, right? You should make the music you want. But on the other hand, you should take feedback from people and try to implement it in your music. Weird. Weird, right? It all depends on what you're looking for, though. I think that just comes down to the individualization of people, right?
Exactly. These are both recipes.
Exactly.
What do you want to cook?
Yep.
Which one do you want to use?
Exactly.
And maybe one doesn't work out, so you switch to the other, or vice versa. But
I'll stop harping on that point. I just think it's just fascinating, though.
It is really fascinating,
right?
Yeah, it's fun to think about and talk about. This is like half of what Brandon and I do for an hour or half before the podcast.
Yeah. Today was more gear based.
It was,
which was cool.
It was.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do that.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
But sometimes we just talk about weird things. Not like weird things.
Oh boy. Leave a comment down below on what you think Brandon and I talk about. What weird things do you think Brandon's into? Moving on to dealing with rejection, we're going to kind of talk about competition inside the industry as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes in certain genres more than others, in certain aspects more than others, there's competition that exists here and there. But it does exist because there's only so much radio time, there's only so many slots out there, there's only so much time in the day for fans to listen to so much music. So you really are kind of competing with all the other songs out there.
Definitely.
And, there's healthy and unhealthy ways to do that, but you can really use this competition to kind of motivate you to try new things, push forward, be more creative, and, like get your stuff out there and see how it all works. So just kind of diving into like how healthy competition can be a driving force for artists, because like it drives innovation, product refinement, especially if there's another band in the area that does something similar to you and you're like, man, I just want to be better than them. So how can I do something different in my live shows to really kick it up a notch and, kick their ass with fans and get more people to come out and see me. I know that in terms of competition, a genre that has a bunch of feuds and
beefs,
that's the word, is, hip hop, rap.
Yeah. Yep.
And Brandon can talk more about that than I can.
There's a lot of competition within hip hop. And you will sometimes get a lovely diss track to somebody else. And then that typically blows up and will span into responses, hopefully all musically. Sometimes that doesn't happen, but nonetheless, it does drive some sort of entertainment value as well, right? For fans and things like that, which I guess is like somewhat innovative just because it's like you have to come up with a song to diss somebody, right? So you're being innovative and creative in the musical sense of things. Outside of that, I don't know if it really drives any other innovation than that. And it doesn't really drive a ton of product refinement. It's more of entertainment value, I would say.
Well, I would argue and say that at a certain point to the whole beefs thing that you're talking about, a lot of it is kind of entertainment.
Oh, for sure.
And
undoubtedly. Jeez.
So while there might not be innovation in the song, now it's like, okay, well, how can I present this to get more people on my side?
Right.
How can I grab some of their fans over here? How do I now keep people engaged in this longer than possible? What can I now post a week later to keep the fire in the flames to, whatever you want to do.
Yep.
They're innovating with how to interact with people on social media to get them involved or make them feel stronger about this whole thing or play up the story and all that. And how do you make it public? How do you make it known?
Yep.
And even if it's like a friendly feud or a friendly competition or whatnot, if there's another band in your area that you're close friends with and you just kind of want to make that part of the story, that's a competition too. You can then promote like, hey, come out to this show. It's me and this other band. Whoever sells tell us who you are coming here to see at the door. Whoever sells less tickets, the fans from the other team get to go behind the building and throw water balloons at the band.
Yeah.
Things like that. Now it's a competition.
There's
cool. Things you can do. Or like, hey, I have to legally go with the state and how to do it or whatever. I don't know the rules about this, so don't take this for things, just randomly spitballing ideas. You can do like, hey, when you buy a ticket at the door, you tell us what band it's for and you put it in a bowl. And then at the end of the show, whichever band has more people there, we then raffle from that bowl, and the fan could, get a dinner with us after the show, or we'll sign your shirt, or, we'll get $100 or whatever it ends up being, make it into like kind of a raffle sort of
That's
deal.
Cool.
And that builds competition to it.
Yep.
There's a bunch of competition in terms of remixes or covers that exists. In fact, if you're an artist, something you can do is you can look at cover competitions, and sometimes you're like, hey, make a cover of the song. Whoever gets the most likes gets to open for this act in this city. About 6 months ago, I got maybe 8 months ago, I've got a buddy who I used to work with named Isaac, and he started making his own original music. And there was a artist that he really looked up to who was coming to do a show in Ann Arbor, didn't have an opening act, and they ran a competition where it's like, hey, cover my song, and then whoever gets the most plays, as I said, gets to open for this band. So he made a cover, and he put it out to all of his artist fan base. Well, now that main artist, their song is in front of a whole new group of people, and they're liking it and they're sharing it. So that helps the main artist. Now the new artist, Isaac, he then got the fans of that major artist to now see his cover, and maybe they like his voice and they like his style. So now they're looking at his music. So it's a really good way to then kind of get other people involved, because now there's like 50 people submitting covers for it.
Yeah.
That now they're sharing, they're talking, they're competing. Now, hey, you covered this song, I covered the song. We like the similar music, so now we get to talking, and now I've got a new friend in the scene, our buddy in the industry, who I can then maybe do a show with or talk things out. And that's how you can use competition for a positive thing. So if you have a decent sized fan base, or even just a dedicated fan base, you can do things like that, put out competitions, even with your fan base, not necessarily with you yourself, that then, keep things going, and motivation, yada, 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 all the buzzwords.
I like that.
That's my rant.
I like that. So
this is the episode of rants.
This is, yeah, we've been very ranty today.
Thank you so much for sticking along with this.
We've been very ranty today. Something's in the air right now.
Something's in the air right now. No, we really, really appreciate it. If you're still listening to this, and you're sticking for the long haul. Yeah. Man, I appreciate you.
Definitely.
And I hope you're entertained.
Yeah, likewise, dude.
So the real question is, who are we going to beef with?
I plan on beefing with Sean.
Yeah? We're going to beef at some point?
Yeah. No, I mean, we already are.
Oh, we already are?
I don't know how you didn't notice.
Oh. I made a short about how I frustrate you.
You did.
I did.
That was the first shot fired.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, you did.
I'll do everything I can to frustrate Brandon on these podcasts.
Well, now I'm frustrated.
Good.
I know.
Actually, friendly competition.
Uh-oh. Oh, no.
Something I've noticed is that when I post things on social media, because I make the posts.
I didn't even do this.
This is funny. I'm putting it out there. Something I notice is that when Brandon's in the thumbnail, it gets more interaction, more comments, and more likes than when I'm in the thumbnail. So we kind of got a competition.
I have like a
going
secret
on here.
network of people that I just send the shorts to. I'm like, watch these, don't watch Sean's.
But now I'm like, I need to get more people involved, like from my end, so that like my stuff starts performing better. So there's a little bit of competition.
Oh, there you go.
Eventually, maybe for like the year anniversary or 2 years or whatever of doing this, we'll put out a poll, like a fun, friendly poll of like, hey, vote for your favorite host.
Oh, no,
That'll be so much fun, dude.
Oh, my God.
Things like that. So yeah, we're going to practice what we preach.
You know what? Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right. And then speaking of competitions, Brandon's now going to go into talking about how competition is actually an illusion.
So competition doesn't actually exist. Yeah. So you can throw out all that bullshit. No, I'm just kidding. Competition is a paradox, and but it's like it's an illusion, right? So like, yes, like by the definition of things, there is competition, right? You open up a muffin store, somebody else opens up a muffin store. Now you're competing for the same business, right?
There can only be one.
There can only be one, right? But the types of competition are different, right? I'm not talking between the muffin stores, but I'm talking about, let's say you and Microsoft, right? Those are way two different things. Microsoft
Where are you going with this?
No, let me hear me out, because there are different types of competition structures, right? Through market structures. So what we do musically is a monopolistic competition, right? That is where we exist. There is no direct substitute for what we do, but there's low barriers of entry, right? But there are like alternatives, right? So instead of listening to rock one day, you're going to listen to pop, right? That's your substitute for your music that day. It's a monopolistic thing. Anybody can do this these days, right? The gear is very affordable, and studios are relatively plentiful, especially with home studios. You know, you might have somebody that you can just go down the street, be like, hey, I want to record here. And there you go. Now you're making music, right?
Can you real quickly define monopolistic for me? Because this is a term I'm not familiar with, and I would assume that some other people might not be.
Monopolistic is when there's a fair amount of competition, but there's low barriers to entry to get into that, right?
Gotcha.
And then there's also the aspect of there are no direct substitutes for your product. So whereas there would be a direct substitute with milk, because it's all the same thing. Milk is milk. You know, 2% is 2%. They don't differ from person to person. And like, if the marketing says so, it usually is not true, right? Meyer milk, that's our local grocery store up here in the Midwest, versus Kroger milk is the same damn thing. There's a direct substitute. My music versus your music are not the same. Those are not direct substitutes, which means that it's a monopolistic thing. You can go to a different place and expect a different result, even though they might be similar in nature. You go to an oil change place versus another oil change place. One might give you a full service, right? They're going to check your tire pressure. They're going to check your windshield wiper fluid. Then you go to a different place and they don't do any of that. They just give you an oil change within 15 minutes and you're out, right? That's where they separate themselves. Although the service is not super differential besides for those aspects, and you can't substitute either, you know what I'm saying? Because one is different than the other. They're pretty similar though in nature. You're still going to get your oil changed. That's what they're there for. So that's basically what a monopolistic competition is. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, we're getting back into music.
And back into music. So that's what I wanted to illustrate though real quick, is because that's really important to know. So it's like when you look at a competition, right? This is my argument. I'm getting to my argument here. When you look at competition and you say, this person's making the same music I want to make. Well, I guess I just shouldn't make that music because somebody's already doing it. That doesn't make sense, right? Are you going to compete with the same market share? Sure, you can. Or you can just be like, hey, this person's making music. I'm going to make my own in a slightly different way. That's just me. That's the healthy way to look at it, right? The best part is too, I went to a studio on Saturday. As you know, I run my own home studio, right? I still went to somebody else's studio and recorded, and I had a great time. I learned a ton there. Didn't go there with a competition mindset in mind. I went there to do a job, but I also had fun doing it too. We both, the owner and I, we were talking like a good majority of the time, and turned out it was great. I learned a ton. I got to meet some cool people, right? They're not my competition. We are competing technically directly with the same market share, but I don't look at them as competition. I look at them as a peer. I can learn a lot from you, you know, or like maybe one day we can do something together. Like it's really cool.
And like how Brandon and I started a podcast.
Exactly. Sean runs his own studio. Sean and I competitors technically by definition. Yeah. But do we act like it? Sometimes. I'll give him a knuckle sandwich here and there. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. No. But that's what it is, right? Sean's my peer. I'm his peer, I think. Yeah. You consider me that? Yeah. I can't put words in his mouth. So I don't know. I mean, he's been super competitive today. So I don't know.
We can put words in my mouth. You can put words in my mouth.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Just write on a piece of paper and shove it in my face.
This is a wild episode. So what I'm saying is that
anyone who says sticks and stones, they break my bones, but words will never hurt me, have never had a dictionary thrown at their head.
It's true. It's true. Those dictionaries do be thick though.
Shit, I messed up the joke. Anyone who said sticks and stones may hurt my bones, but words will never hurt me, have never had a cookbook thrown at their head.
Oh, that's good.
There we go.
That's
on
good.
brand.
That's good. But that's what I'm saying though, is that really competition is all an illusion, and it's all about how you look at things, right? Yeah. Half glass full, half glass empty. That's what it really is. So therefore, it's kind of a paradox, but technically the competition exists.
If you want to make a competition that can put you and your competitor forward, or can breed positive things from it, whereas you have more motivation, more innovation, newer fan base, things like that, then it's competition, but it's not detrimental. There's not a winner, there's not a loser.
Right.
Kind of like when I said earlier, there's the big artists making a competition for the little artists to compete to have someone be on stage. nobody is a loser
Mm-hmm.
in that situation. There's competition. Only one person is going to perform, but every other artist is now on the radar of somebody who wasn't on the radar before.
Yep. I would argue that if you look at it as a strict competition and you don't want any companionship from this or anything like that, you are the loser.
That's not music.
Yeah. It's not music at all.
Yeah.
Never has been.
No.
I mean, music is very community based.
Yes.
And it always has been that way. That's how it got started, right? So there you go. I mean, I guess if you really do take it super seriously as a competitor, then you kind of are the loser in the case, because you're missing out, first of all, on great relationships that you can build with people. And not only that, but relationships that extend beyond that person, networking, right? Yeah. That is so important. And if you burn bridges, it's over. Like you're not going to be able to go anywhere with that, right? Your name gets passed around. Don't work with this guy because of X, Y, and Z, right? And
it's going to take a lot longer to get to where you want to get.
All of a sudden, you're doing damage control. And that is so difficult to come back from. So difficult. You can beg and plead, but nobody owes you that, right? Yeah. Nobody owes you that. It's okay, man. You know, we'll get over this together, especially with the things that the severity of which you do things, which I don't want to get into. So like just leverage these relationships over the competitive mindset, right?
Yeah.
Now, competition does help drive innovation and product refinement, as we kind of talked about. And
Capitalism.
I know, capitalism. That's our actual economy in a nutshell, right? And I know I'm kind of ranting at this point, but
you're fine.
But I want to make sure that this is seen though. Leverage relationships, and that sounds bad. Don't leverage them in bad ways, but cultivate relationships over participating in a competitive way, right? Be a decent person. I feel like I say that every fucking episode.
You know what else is said every episode?
Opportunity cost.
If you're not having fun and not taking it seriously.
Yeah, see, there you go.
That's what every episode too.
Yeah. Like if I went to the studio on Saturday and I wasn't having fun, like am I really taking it seriously?
No.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, I'll just be here. It's like, what the fuck is up with that? It's just terrible. And then my next point, and I already kind of touched on this, is like just because one person is doing that doesn't mean that you can't do it. You just have to separate yourself. And sometimes separating yourself is literally just being as unique to yourself as you are, that you already exist in that state, right?
Yeah.
You're just a different person. Sometimes it's just as simple as that. Sometimes you may need to look deeper, but especially if you're making very similar music, maybe you separate it somehow like that. But even just in terms of voice, in terms of how you play the guitar, whatever you do, it's just going to differ just a tiny bit, right?
You can lean heavily into it.
Exactly.
That's a differentiator.
And
as you do it enough, people start to expect that of you. It makes you different. That's what they like about it.
Yes.
It's like, oh, no, nothing else does this. So, and then it could also inspire new people to make music that's kind of similar based off of that. So.
Exactly. One small caveat, tiny, but the first thing where people look to be different at almost every time, and I don't know if you've experienced this too, is the first thing they think of, how can I be different? Oh, I'm going to charge differently. I'm going to charge different amounts of money to be different. And I don't think you should separate yourself like that.
Race to the bottom.
Exactly. That's what you get. And then there's no room for product refinement. There's no room for innovation, right? Because then it's just like, got to do it.
Instead of making your price cheaper, make the service you provide the value of what you're charging.
Exactly.
Now, that is a business statement through and through.
It is.
In terms of how that applies to music, if you want to charge $20 at the door instead of $5 at the door, what can you add to the show that makes it worth 20 at the door? How can you make the experience that memorable? How can you make people want to come out there? If you want to sell merch of your CDs or vinyl or whatnot, well, first of all, if you want to sell physical media, it's like, well, do I want to sell cassette, CD, or vinyl?
Yeah.
Those have different intrinsic values. You can charge more for vinyl because it's a larger piece of material. It's used more as art in this point. People can hang on their walls. If you want to make it more of like a bifold, put art in the middle as it opens up, or information on the back that's only available there. Or you can include like, hey, if you buy our vinyl at the show, it's $40 versus $25 online, but we're going to throw in a CD that has that has the demo recordings of it,
or signed,
or
both.
Exactly. What can you do to then make it worth that for the person? This is both, things you're selling physically, the experiences you're selling. The same thing with social media, that's a way of doing it, is I want your eyes on me versus your eyes anywhere else on the platform.
Mm-hmm.
So then what can I do to make your time here more worthwhile? Which is why, as I mentioned earlier, it's important to kind of make things specified. Go crazy on that one.
Siblings.
Make things more specified towards where you are releasing it so that it's more in line with why people are there.
Yeah.
And people are going to stick around longer and become more fans of you because now you're spending their time wisely on that platform or giving them what they're asking for.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I think you summed it up so well. That is the way that you should approach it. It shouldn't just be a baseline. Oh, I'm going to do, I know I keep doing it. It shouldn't just be like, oh, I'm just going to charge $5 less.
Yeah.
Just to be different, right? Don't take that route because, like Sean said, it's a race to the bottom. So that's my rant on competition and how it doesn't actually exist, but it does exist. So welcome to the competition paradox. So I hope everybody followed that and hope that made sense because, wow, what a struggle.
Yeah. And that's Brandon's rant. I've had a couple of them this episode. And as I said, that's also the episode. We're wrapping it up now. Thank you for joining us for this journey. Hopefully you're able to glean a couple of positive things from it. It was kind of all over the place.
It was.
Brandon and I are in a mood.
Yeah. We talked about it before the episode started. We've restarted this episode 3 times.
We have.
Which is a record. We've never, we'll restart a little glimpse into the lore.
Yeah. Usually because I fuck up the intro. And I want to do it, but
I didn't even introduce myself as Brandon today. I just said I'm rejected.
Yeah.
That's how different it is.
That's Brandon, by the way.
I am Brandon. I am Brandon.
So, yeah.
I should wear a name tag.
You should. We got the podcast on these mugs
Yes,
here.
we do.
Also
Mine's right
got
in front.
The studios in the back.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you liked this kind of chaotic episode,
yeah,
let us know.
Yeah.
If you reject this episode and want us to go back to how we've been doing it. Also, let us know. You can tell us by, this podcast on Spotify has a Q&A where you can let us know what you thought about the episode. Mm-hmm. While you're there, by the way, leave us a review, give us 5 stars, and helps us get in front of other independent artists. Mm-hmm. What also helps us get in front of other independent artists is if you go to our social media pages on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all that. And it's at Music Makers Cookbook. Give us a subscribe, follow. It really helps us out. Makes us know what we're doing right, what we need to change. Yep. Get some reviews on it so we can grow. Yada, yada, yada.
Just like what Sean was saying, right? Is that you're going to listen to this and you're going to give us feedback either way, though. Either you stop listening to it so we can see the metric, or you just tell us. So just tell us.
Just tell us.
I think it's just easier that way. Because we're going to see it anyways. And we're going to know from the feedback of which you give us through the metrics how we feel about this episode. And you know what? It was a very ranty episode.
It was.
So, and I'm ranting again. It's as simple as that.
We got to call it.
We have to.
We're getting too in the weeds. We're getting meta with it now. So can I say bon appetit this time?
Yeah.
You're supposed to reject me.
Oh.
I was trying to do a callback.
I was trying to be nice. Wait, restart that.
No, both things we talked about.
I just got rejected from restarting.
Apparently I'm better at doing it than you are.
I just wanted to be nice.
Anyways,
I say it every time.
Thank you for cooking with us. Thank you for checking out this episode, being a part of this community, and trying out some recipes of your own. Let us know what works for you. All the things that I normally say at the end of the episode. We're okay. Don't worry.
We look so defeated right now. I can already tell on camera. We're good. I promise you we're good. Rejection.
Bon appetit.